Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're gearing up for the IELTS exam right now, I know the speaking section can feel, well, incredibly intimidating. But today, we're going to completely change the game. We're going to ditch those nervous, robotic responses, and instead, we're building a highly structured architectural blueprint for acing your IELTS speaking assessment. I want you to think of your response like a house that we're going to build together today to guarantee a sturdy, beautiful Band 7 or higher result. Here is our exact roadmap for today. We'll start with the IELTS speaking landscape and the 4 pillars of grading. Then we'll move into the birthday cake strategy, crafting your hometown answer, elevating work and hobbies, and finally, putting it all together in the ultimate model answer. Section 1. The IELTS speaking landscape. All right, let's dive into this. Before we start putting up the walls of our house, we really need to survey the land, so you know exactly what to expect when you walk through those exam room doors. Whether you're taking the academic, general, computer-delivered, or paper-based test, the speaking section is exactly the same for everybody. It always proceeds through these 3 exact parts. First up, part 1. Once the examiner checks your ID, they kick things off with some straightforward small talk about your life, your home, your studies, your hobbies, before shifting into other general topics like art or computers. Then we hit part 2, the long turn. The examiner hands you a task card, a pen, and some paper. You get 1 minute to prepare, and then you have to deliver a continuous 2-minute speech, usually about a person, a place, an object, or an event. Finally, part 3 expands into a deep, abstract back-and-forth dialogue. You aren't really sharing personal stories anymore. You're defining, comparing, and arguing broader concepts that relate directly back to your part 2 topic. Moving right along to section 2, 4 pillars of grading. Now that we know the landscape, we've got to pour our foundation, and that means understanding exactly what the examiner is actually listening for. So remember, there are no correct or incorrect answers in this test. You are strictly graded on your language skills. These are the 4 pillars of your score. You've got fluency and coherence, which basically means speaking smoothly without excessive hesitation. You have lexical resource, which is using a precise, wide range of vocabulary. But I really must emphasize those bottom 2, grammatical range and pronunciation. So often, I see candidates obsess over cramming in fancy vocabulary, but they completely forget that grammatical range and natural pronunciation are just as essential for a Band 7. Seriously, you literally cannot achieve a high score with great vocabulary if it's spoken in broken sentences or with a flat, unnatural voice. Which brings us to Section 3, the birthday cake strategy. The crucial point here is, how do we actually apply all of this without sounding like you just memorized a textbook? Think of your answer literally like baking a birthday cake. The main ingredients, your flour, your sugar, your butter, that makes up 97% of the cake. That perfectly represents your fundamental fluency, your clear pronunciation, and your solid basic grammar. And that remaining 3%? Well, those are the colorful sprinkles on top. Those are your high-level advanced C1 and C2 vocabulary words. Think about it. You can't bake a cake entirely out of sprinkles. You need your natural, fundamental English to do the heavy lifting, while you just add a few perfectly placed, strategic advanced words to really boost that score. And to make sure those sprinkles are actually working for you, always apply what we call the stranger test. If you wrote your introduction down on a piece of paper and handed it to a complete stranger on the street, would they easily understand who you are? Or would they just be totally confused by a bunch of forced, outdated idioms? The goal, for sure, is always absolute clarity. You have to guarantee your authentic voice isn't getting buried under weird, unnatural vocabulary choices. Okay, Section 4, crafting your hometown answer. Let's see how this all builds together. It is time to erect the first structural pillar of our blueprint, describing exactly where you're from. This is almost always one of the very first questions the examiner will ask, so we need to come out swinging. Just look at the massive quality jump here. We're shifting from a Band 5 basic response on the left, which, let's be honest, the examiner has probably heard 1,000 times today, to painting this vivid, nuanced Band 7 picture on the right. Instead of just saying a big, busy city, we use bustling metropolis. Instead of very old, it's steeped in history. This seamlessly layers those descriptive phrases to hit both lexical resource and grammatical range in one perfect breath by using a defining relative clause. And this brilliantly illustrates how using native-like conversational sprinkles rather than stiff textbook phrases actually softens your introduction and makes you sound incredibly approachable. For example, instead of stating your name like a robot, adding "but I usually go by Tom" instantly elevates a standard greeting to a C1 level expression. Try swapping out "I am from" with the idiomatic "born and bred in," or replace "I live in" with "I've been based in." These are tiny tweaks, but they completely change the flavor of your answer. You sound like a confident professional, not a textbook. Let's jump to Section 5, Elevating Work and Hobbies. Now that our hometown pillar is perfectly constructed, let's erect the next two pillars covering your professional life and your free time. Work and study is basically the next logical topic the examiner will jump to. By replacing a blunt, basic sentence on the left with pursuing a major and describing it as highly demanding yet rewarding, you immediately showcase your maturity. It tells the examiner, hey, I have the ability to communicate complex, contrasting ideas. Throwing in the temporal adverb currently right at the start sets the context beautifully, creating perfect coherence and a really nice flow. Now, what's really interesting here is how easily you can adapt these advanced phrases to show genuine passion for whatever your actual hobbies are. If you like reading, don't just say, I like reading. Say you are an avid reader. If you're into hiking or photography, you can say you have a profound inclination towards it. And ending with, I find it a great way to unwind, utilizes an adverbial clause of reason. So you aren't just stating a fact, you are explaining the why, which naturally varies your sentence structure. Oh, and saying something like, I'm a bit of a language geek or a bookworm, that is advanced, playful, and highly engaging. All right, Section 6, the ultimate model answer. We've got an amazing house built here, but before we reveal the final masterpiece, we need to defend our blueprint from the monsters that absolutely destroy test scores. These are the absolutely crucial defense mechanisms you need to protect your high score. First off, examiners can spot memorized, scripted answers from a mile away, so just don't do it. Steer clear of repetitive, basic vocabulary. But honestly, the real silent killer here is flat intonation. Even if you use the best vocabulary in the world, if you fall into the trap of flat, robotic intonation where every single word sounds the exact same, the examiner is going to dock your points. You must bring the words to life with natural stress, rhythm, and a varied pitch. This is the real climax of our explainer, where all our hard work finally pays off. Just listen to how this flows. I'm originally from a bustling metropolis that is steeped in history. Currently, I am pursuing a major in environmental science, which is highly demanding yet rewarding. Outside of my studies, I am an avid reader and have a profound inclination towards hiking, as I find it a great way to unwind. Notice those linking words seamlessly connecting roles with future aspirations, and the complex grammar structures effortlessly delivering that high-level C1 vocabulary? The three pillars of hometown, work, and hobbies flawlessly snap together under one cohesive, perfectly paced roof. So what if the biggest barrier between you and a Band 7 isn't your vocabulary, but simply your willingness to let your true personality shine through the structure? As you take this exact architectural blueprint and draft your very own introduction today, ask yourself if you're ready to stop sounding like a dusty textbook and start communicating like your authentic self. Who are you going to be in that exam room? The robot or the fluent communicator? Keep practicing, use those strategic sprinkles, and let your personality shine. Thanks for joining this explainer, and we'll see you next time.